I now own the most fearsome blaster in my foam dart blaster collection. No, it's not the Titan CS50. No, it's not the Gallerhorn. It's the Blastercorn. I have no idea who thought of making this product, but I want to shake their hand because this is just so wonderfully, delightfully goofy. This comes to us from Xshots, but it doesn't have any of the skins moniker on there, which is interesting. It just says Blastercorn, which I'm totally fine with, but it makes heavy use of that printing technology on the blaster so that we can have these amazing designs on it. Let's just take a really close look at this thing. Highly detailed. The printing technology on this is getting so much better from where it started with just the skins line. I'm honestly so impressed, but what's going to impress me more is the gimmicky feature on this. When I press the trigger, it even has a cutout on the back for it, the wings flap. Look at that. This reminds me, in the best ways possible, of the Nerf Rebel line. It just has all of these extra elements that, well, they aren't necessarily needed or do any sort of great functionality for performance. It just makes it fun to use, which for me, primarily when I'm firing blasters, is what I'm looking for. So I can't wait any longer. I need to get the Blastercorn out and just see how well this thing works. Here it is out of the packaging. Wonderful. I saw this at Target on the store shelves. I had no idea this was coming. Zuru Xshot did not give me a heads up, which makes it more surprising because this just looks so cool. It was very cheap. I think it was like around $7, $8. I'll put the actual price I paid for it on the screen here. But when I'm looking at this thing, I immediately get flashbacks to the Nerf Rebel line, again, in all of the best ways possible. So if we're going to take a look at the blaster, we're going to be looking at some of the core things, right? Like what I don't like, what I would have changed. Honestly, this is a wonderful first impression. And if you're wondering what the other side looks like, yeah, it's got the same decoration on there. This is making use of that skins printing technology. You can really tell where this is starting to take off. It's getting higher fidelity. And it's really incredible. This is really incredible. The other thing, too, inside this locket, that right there isn't painted. That's the printing technology as well. I just saw that. That's really cool. It does have like a little miss on there. It's kind of on the sides of the walls, but I'm guessing because that's so recessed, that's got to be a very difficult part to paint. I don't know what to call it. There's like another little area right underneath the locket, which I don't know how the ink jet or whatever they use for this technology could get into that overhang, but they did the best they could. What I like about it, it's so colorful. It is so goofy. This is... It flaps its wings when you press the trigger. I mean, how can you not smile when you use something like this? If you're wondering where the dart barrel is and you haven't figured it out yet, it is the horn, because it is a Blastercorn. I think what we need to do now is put a dart in this thing, try it out for the first time, see how it fires, if the performance is just as wonderful as the outside aesthetic of this thing. As I get out the darts, you notice that these are more fun. Very reminiscent of like cotton candy, I would say. So it's got this really bright neon hot pink body, and then the tip of the dart here is a soft rubbery royal purple. Very fitting of this. And you can kind of see where it goes along. So like the handle matches the foam here, and then the tip matches the, I guess this is a tail / prime. This is a very simple blaster to operate. Primed and ready. So we're just gonna fire it off here. That has got a satisfying pop, just like other Xshot blasters that I've used in the past. This one is, I would say, similar to the Reaper X, the Manic, the Xshot Insanity stuff, because it's that single-fire dart blaster. Added bonus here is that the barrel is a unicorn horn, which I haven't ever seen in a dart blaster ever in my life. So this is a first, which is saying something. I own hundreds and hundreds of blasters, and to have something this unique, something this out there, goofy, whatever you want to call it, it just makes me smile. It's wonderful. But let's try this out a few more times. They give us a ton of darts in this thing. Like, how many is this? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, like 16 darts, if I'm reading that right, or something like that. There's just a ton of darts in this. Oh yeah, I read it on the package over there. Yep, 16 darts. I don't necessarily have all the room in the world here, but we're just gonna keep firing this thing. Having a lot of fun. Now, one thing I would have changed on this, and I don't know how you would keep the aesthetic for this, is have some kind of dart storage on it, because you have 16 darts in the box and the unicorn horn only holds one dart at a time. you've got a lot of other darts to stash places. Having extra darts, having more darts on you isn't a bad problem to have. What I am curious about, though, is if it can use half-length darts, because I'm looking down there, the dart post seems rather small, so maybe there's a way. It looks like there's an air restrictor. There's no harm in trying it, right? The only thing I guess that could happen is we get a dart stuck in the unicorn horn, but we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. So I have one of these worker half-length darts. I'm just going to put it down in there, and I think I felt it seat a little bit. We'll see. All right, let's try this out. A half-length dart in the Blastercorn. Here we go. Ooh, it worked, as you saw, but because the air restrictor wasn't fully pushed back, we are not getting any sort of performance like we would see with the full-length dart. I was going to say half-length dart, but you have to use full-length darts in this one. Without some modifications, that would be very difficult to use half-lengths in this one. I would not recommend it. Full-length dart blaster only. But let's talk about the possibilities of the Blastercorn, because I think when we get a blaster like this, a one-off thing, this is almost like soft launching a blaster line without going, couple blasters deep with it right from the jump. I think if they continue to refine the whole Blastercorn idea and concept, you could go many weird places with it that would make such fun blasters. I mean, not only do we have unicorns, you could do Pegasi, other mythical beasts that just have this very counter theming as what you'd expect with a blaster. Like, I keep bringing up the comparison with Rebel, and I think it sticks here because we haven't seen something this aggressively different in the blaster aisle in a long time. I mean, look, even in the trigger, there's a cutout of a heart. That's not something I'm getting on any other dart blaster from any other company. I mentioned Rebel a few times, and if you don't know the Nerf Rebel line, well, here's just a brief history lesson as well as some examples that go along with it. The Nerf Rebel line came to us like in the 2010s, and it was just a new line of blasters that was aimed at girls, but it had some of the most really interesting, intricately designed, and interesting firing mechanisms that we've seen across Nerf since. At the time, it was competing with Nerf Elite, which is probably a lot more remembered, but the individual blasters of the Rebel line are more memorable, if that makes any sense. I've got some Nerf Rebel blasters right over here, so let me grab some so you can just see what I'm talking about. So here is one of the best Rebel blasters. This is called the Sweet Revenge. This is the Xshot clone, but as you can see, it's not very much of a clone. It's a sleeker, slimmer blaster that offers the same level of performance. Here we have the Blastercorn next to it. Very similar profiles, very similar aesthetic and feel. Here we have the Nerf Rebel Dauntless. Put it up against the Blastercorn. The Dauntless has this very fancy scrolling across the blaster design. And there's another one right down here that I've got has a similar aesthetic. So as you can see here, these two look very similar. And while it doesn't necessarily match the Blastercorn, there are elements of this just trying something different, trying something new, something that you wouldn't normally see on the blaster aisle. Here's another. This one is a rare Nerf Rebel blaster. This is the Fearless Fury, or Fearless Fury. And putting this with the Blastercorn, you can see that this makes a very good pairing. This could be your primary, this could be your secondary. You could have a very fun loadout. Like, again, you can kind of see where this is going. There were some really great ideas with the Rebel line, some really great ideas with the Blastercorn. One more example, and this could just show us some of the wild, far-flung places that the Blastercorn subseries, if one ever gets made, could go. This is called the Nerf Rebel Secret Shot, and as you can see here, it has stickers on the side that are reflective so that I can see what's around the corners, and the barrel does turn. So now, hopefully you get a little better context of why I'm comparing this to Nerf Rebel so much, and why I keep saying it's unique, it's refreshing, it's different, it's cool. I have high hopes for Blastercorn being Rebel 2.0. Let's just make it happen. Because it's making such heavy use of the skins technology, that direct-to-product printing technology, there's also just a lot of latitude that we could go with just this shell design, which is something that we know Xshot does exceedingly well. You could change up the decoration on the unicorn. You could change the color of the molded plastic so that it feels different, but it maintains that cohesive aesthetic for something so different. You'll notice that I'm not talking a lot about the actual mechanics of firing this thing, and that's for good reason. It's because there's really nothing interesting or novel going on with having a dart fly from a blaster. That's kind of secondary to everything else going on here with the Blastercorn. It has flappy wings when we... Every time I do that, it just makes me giggle. Have no other purpose than just being a fun little extra on this blaster that when you are throwing some foam darts down a battlefield, down a range, that you're going to have something that most other people aren't. I love when companies try something new based on something that is proven. So here we have a blaster, which we know is fun, right? It's a naturally fun toy because you put a dart in, you prime it, you squeeze the trigger, dart goes flying, people run, scatter, pick up another blaster, and then a battle ensues. What this does differently is it just adds personality, it adds uniqueness, it adds just a bit of unseriousness in a category that has been inching and moving closer and closer towards more serious, more competitive, faster, bigger, better, stronger. Blastercorn is running the opposite direction of that. A couple things that I don't necessarily like about the Blastercorn is that it doesn't feel like the sturdiest Blastercorn that could possibly be made. It does feel a little light in parts. I'm not quite sure how well these wings are going to stay on if this has to get stored and something sitting on top of it. There's some questions just about the durability of this overall, long term. I would have liked to seen this on par with something like the Reaper X, which I just recently reviewed. For the longest time, a lot of people in the foam dart community have lamented the demise of the Nerf Rebel style shell. Well, I think in the Blastercorn we have a bit of a revival of sorts, so it is a good thing to see, and I hope this isn't the last we see of the Blastercorn. Like I mentioned earlier, I think there is a lot of different directions a line like this could go, but I just love seeing the fun put back into blasters, and the Blastercorn is a step, or maybe a hoof, in the right direction. I feel like I've talked a lot about the unique qualities of the Blastercorn, or just how unique it looks, and I think that's my overall impression, that's my overall thoughts for playing with the Blastercorn. The joy of using something that just isn't fully serious is great, because I know I've said this many times, but some of the best era for foam dart blasting, for me personally, the stuff that I really like to collect are from the 90s, the 2000s, where we had these wild gimmicks that didn't necessarily make sense or make the blaster more competitive, just made it more unique, more fun. The Blastercorn has that down. So I suppose it's up to everybody else who enjoys unique blasters to go run out and buy one of these things and sustain the Blastercorn line. This feels like a soft launch, hopefully leading to something bigger and better in the future, because I'm guessing this is just the start of some ideas that somebody had at Zuru that we could take some wild and wonderful places. So that's it. That's everything that I know about the Blastercorn. If you guys like blasters, we've talked a lot about the Blastercorn, but I also talk about other blasters too. If you like action figures, got a lot of G.I. Joes over there, some Star Wars Black Series, Marvel Legends, Masters of the Universe, Halo Spartans. Like, if you name it, it's probably on the shelf there at some point, either through 6-inch scale or larger, or smaller, the Ninja Turtle stuff. You should subscribe. You're not going to want to miss future videos on it. If you have any questions about the Blastercorn, please leave them in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.